Congressional Quarterly has published a devastating story about Jane Harman. She's a Democrat from California. She's a Congresswoman in the House of Representatives. Apparently, she was caught on an NSA wiretap dealing with a suspected Israeli agent, promising that she would lobby the Justice Department to reduce the espionage-related charges against two officials of AIPAC, that is the major Israeli lobbying group in America. And she said, well, look, it's hard because the Attorney General at the time, Alberto Gonzales, only listens to White House orders. That's all he does. But I will give it my best effort to contact any officials to try to reduce these charges. Now, what did she get in return? That suspected Israeli agent said to her, we will try to use our influence with Nancy Pelosi to make sure that you are the head of the powerful Intelligence Committee if and when the Democrats take over the House in 2006, as both sides suspected that they would. Now, Jane Harman thought that this conversation was so toxic and obviously, in my opinion and the opinion of the people who heard it at the NSA, illegal, that at the end of the conversation she said, quote, this conversation doesn't exist. That's according to transcripts obtained. Now, there are three former top officials at the national security agencies that are willing to go and talk to the press and have talked to the press saying this is exactly what's happened and that is what is in the transcripts. Now, it gets worse. At some point, the NSA obviously hears this, recognizes it, and goes to the head of the CIA at the time, Porter Goss, and says, we have a problem here. We have a United States congressperson talking to suspected Israeli agents and offering them promises in return for political payoffs, basically, in terms of the intelligence chair in the House. And Goss is about to go through the regular process and inform Nancy Pelosi and at the time Dennis Hastert that this is the situation they have with an official member of the House. And at that point, Alberto Gonzales steps in. He is at that point the Attorney General and says, don't. Jane Harman is a friend of ours. The New York Times is about to break the warrantless wiretapping story, and Jane is going to help us. So back off. And Porter Goss backs off. He does not go through the regular channels. They, in effect, drop the case. They do not pursue it further. And when the warrantless wiretapping story does, in fact, break, Jane Harman delivers. This is a quote she gave on December 21st of 2005. I believe it is essential to the U.S. national security, referring to the warrantless wiretapping program, and that its disclosure has damaged critical intelligence capabilities. And if you remember at the time, we were thinking, why is this Democrat going way out of her way to help the Bush administration by saying you don't understand how critical what appears to be this illegal program, how critical this program is, and how the New York Times should have never disclosed it? Because she was covering her own ass. She had made a deal with Gonzales. Hey, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. In fact, we also find out in this report, again in the Congressional Quarterly, that Jane Harman had helped the Bush administration even earlier. She had helped persuade the New York Times in the first place, on the eve of the 2004 election, to not release information on this secret warrantless wiretapping program. So there she is working against her own party, saying, hey, whatever you do, do not release this damaging information on the Republican Party and the Republican administration. So Gonzales already knew, hey, we got Jane in our corner. Don't worry, don't go after her. And they didn't. Now, when asked, these three officials inside the national security organizations said that, in their opinion, Jane Harman had committed what they called, quote, a completed crime. That they had enough information to go forward with a prosecution, and that she was dealing with these agents and trading, obviously favors here. Now, ultimately, those two guys from AIPAC were prosecuted, and there was no favors done in terms of lightening their sentence, as far as we know. And Jane Harman's plot did not succeed. But this is a devastating information. In fact, this is a lot of what people were worried about. And remember when, some progressives were worried, hey, why are the Democrats working with the Bush administration to make sure these illegal programs go on? hey, did they use it against them? Do they have goods on them? And I have to confess, at the time I thought, well, that sounds a bit paranoid. Well, it turns out it wasn't paranoid at all. In fact, they did have the goods on Jane Harman, and that is part of why she worked with them. Now, she worked with them, like I said, on the eve of the 2004 election, before any of this Israel stuff came up. So what was her motivation for that? That's another good question, and probably requires another investigation. And this is an important distinction, too, by the way. As far as we know, for the moment being, they did not use the warrantless wiretapping program on her. The NSA tap that they had on her was a legal tap, and it had a court order to do that. The NSA had a court order because they were following those guys that were suspected of being Israeli agents, and they had the conversation with Jane Harman. So it turns out, look at this, you can do things legally and still get people who are actually involved in crimes. But what, of course, they should not have done is then take that information, use it for political leverage, and not actually prosecute that crime. So that part is, I suppose, unsurprising given what the Bush administration did. But should Jane Harman be investigated on this? Should they reopen that case? Absolutely. Should Jane Harman be reelected in California? Absolutely not.